Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope y'all are doing well today. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing with y'all my recommendations for high-end products that you can use for a beginner's makeup starter kit. So let's jump right into it. I feel like my voice is kind of nasally today, so I'm sorry if y'all can hear that, but let's get into the video. So this is basically like a continuation of my last video where I did a beginner's makeup tutorial, and I also gave y'all some recommendations for drugstore products that you can use for your beginner's makeup starter kit. So today I'm going to be giving y'all some high-end recommendations just so you guys can have some different options. And just like what I did with the drugstore products, for the products that I'm going to be talking about today, I wanted to make sure that I pick products that I think are very inclusive in terms of skin type and also shade range. So especially for those of us who are in that 40+ age range like myself, but regardless of where your age is and regardless of what your skin type is, you should be able to use the products that I'm going to be talking about today because they're meant for pretty much any skin type. And a lot of these products have a really nice shade range because, again, I wanted to make sure that everybody has an option from the products that I'm going to be recommending. So before we get into makeup, let's talk about makeup tools, and I'm going to share with you some recommendations for brushes, and I'll kind of share a recommendation for sponge, but I'll explain that in a minute. I mentioned in the first video that I did that I think it's easier for a beginner to just get a brush set instead of worrying about trying to get individual brushes. So I think the same would apply if you're going to be looking into high-end products. So I'm going to be linking some brush sets from Luxie Beauty in my description box. I think that's a really good brand to look at for high-end brushes that you can get in a set. So I just wanted to show you guys a few of my Luxie brushes. All of the Luxie brushes that I have, I've gotten them from BoxyCharm, but I've gotten so many brushes. I think I have enough to have like maybe 2 full sets. But one of the brush sets that I got, it was like a mini set of like a mix of face and eye brushes. But I have a bunch of brushes from Luxie and I love every single one of them. So I think this would be a good brand to look at just to get a full set instead of looking at individual brushes. Now, in terms of makeup sponges, so my favorite sponge is from the drugstore. It's the SonyaNicole sponge, and it's the one that I talked about in the tutorial video where I did the tutorial for beginners. I've never used the actual Beauty Blender sponge. However, a lot of people talk about that sponge. A lot of people really love it. So if you're looking into a high-end sponge, I would go with that one. I personally have never bought it because it's like $20 or $25 and I just can't justify spending that much on a sponge, especially with this one, because this one is really, really good. But I will say that people who buy the Beauty Blender sponge, they love it, and a lot of people like repurchase it because they just love the way the sponge operates on their skin. So I mean, you can try that if you want, but I can't personally recommend that because I've never actually tried it. All the sponges that I've tried, they've all been from the drugstore. So I also talked about the L'Oreal sponge in the drugstore video, as well as the Real Techniques sponges, but my favorite is definitely the SonyaNicole one. But again, a lot of people really like that $20 Beauty Blender sponge if you want to try that one out. Okay, so we're gonna move on to foundation. So I did talk about in the drugstore video about why I'm not covering primer in these videos, because I want to keep this like really basic for people who are just starting out. I'm just focusing on the parts of a makeup routine and the products that I think that you'll need just to do like a basic full face of makeup, and I don't think it's necessary for you to have primer in order to just practice with your foundation. And I also think it's best to try new foundations without a primer first, just to see how it'll operate on your face. You know, you may decide that you may not even need a primer down the line, so that's why I'm not covering primer for today. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into foundation, and my high-end recommendation would definitely be Fenty Beauty. So when Fenty Beauty first launched, they came out with a soft matte foundation, and they advertised it as one that would work for any skin type. But a lot of people that have like drier skin types, they were saying that that foundation was just too drying for them and a little too matte for them. So Fenty did listen to that customer feedback, which they're very good at doing that, and they came out with a hydrating foundation that would cater more towards pretty much everybody. So when this foundation came out, it took me a long time to try it because I thought that this was basically for people with drier skin types. And I used to really love the soft matte foundation. I do still really like it, but when I finally decided to try this one, I actually like this one better than the soft matte one, and I have really oily skin. This one actually lasted longer on my face than the soft matte one, even without pairing it with a primer. That's one of the reasons I really love this foundation. So I think no matter what your skin type is, dry, oily, or anything in between, you should be able to use this. And again, for those of us who are in like that 40+ range, this would also be a good option for us, even as we're, you know, continuing to get a little older. This foundation also comes in 50 shades, so it's very likely that you'll be able to find something that you can use. However, please keep in mind that no matter how many shades a brand has, you may still have to mix. So I actually have to mix 2 shades together, and in case you can use me as a reference, I use shades 340 and 380, and I always have all of my most common foundation shades down in my description box, but I still have to mix 2 shades together. But I'm willing to do that for this foundation because I really like it. So again, I'm recommending this for beginners because no matter what your skin type is, you should be able to work with this, and they do have a really impressive shade range. Moving on to concealer, my recommendation would be the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. This concealer is a really good example of a concealer that has really nice coverage but also has a really nice natural looking finish. I think a lot of times when we see concealers that have like really good coverage, they usually are like more of like a matte or almost like maybe like a sticky type finish to it. This one has a really nice natural smooth finish to it. It just glides on the skin when you apply it. It just blends out really nicely, and it has really good coverage. That's the main reason I'm recommending this. It comes in 35 shades. Now there are definitely some other concealer lines out there that have more shades than this one, but I will say out of the 35 shades, the range is really good from light to deep in the 35 shades, if that makes sense. So if you have like a very deep skin tone, it's possible that the deepest shade may not be deep enough for you, but they do have some pretty deep shades in this line. But what I really like about this is the formula. Like, it's just so smooth, so creamy, and it has really good coverage. I have like really problematic under eyes, but this is definitely my favorite concealer. It's not the one that I've been using lately, just because I've come across another concealer that I've just been liking just because it's something new to me. But this is definitely my favorite one ever. I think that this does a really good job at making my under eyes look, you know, like halfway decent anyway. But no matter what your skin type is, just like with the Fenty foundation, you should really like this. And like I said, they have a really good shade range, so that's why I'm recommending that one. Now moving on to setting powder, I'm actually going to give you guys 2 options for setting powder. So the first one is the Pretty Vulgar setting powder. This is the one that I've been using the most, not lately, but I would say like since I got introduced to it, it's definitely the one that I've been using the most. This one only comes in 1 shade, and I usually kind of stay away from like translucent powders, but I think this one is like the most translucent one that I have. So that's what the shade of it looks like. It has kind of like a beigey tone to it, but when you blend it out, it's like very transparent. It's very silky, very smooth, and it blends out really quickly, and it's really transparent on your skin. So that's the main reason I'm recommending them. Of course, I just got the powder all over the place. This one for me, I can use it all over my face. So a lot of times I like to use one powder under my eye and then another one all over the rest of my face. I feel like this one I can use all over the face with no problem. So again, even if you have like a really light skin tone or a really deep one, I think you'll be able to use this one. However, if you feel more comfortable with trying a skin tone powder, because I think some people, especially people who are new with makeup, you might be a little like intimidated by like a translucent powder. This one doesn't leave any type of white cast or anything, but if you feel like you might be more comfortable with a skin tone powder, I would also suggest the Chalk Dust setting powder from the Crayon case. Now the Crayon case I would consider kind of like a mid-range brand, so their price point is definitely higher than Drugstore, but they're not like quite as high as some of the brands that you would see like in Sephora. So for instance, their setting powder costs $20 and this Pretty Vulgar powder costs $32. But if you get a powder from the drugstore, you might be looking at like $8 or $10. So I feel like the crayon case is kind of like right in between. And you can only find the crayon case on their website. This is not available in stores to my knowledge. I know it's not available at Ulta or Sephora. I think the only place you can get any of their products is on their website, but I'll have it linked in my description box. So this powder comes in 7 different shades and they have a bunch of different tones. The one that I use is kind of like a pinkish type tone. It could be considered like borderline neutral maybe, but they have like yellow tone powders, they have like straight up brown ones, they have like warm brown ones. So if you're looking for something that's more of like a skin tone powder, I think that this one would be a good option. Now I will say that I have some powders, including the Pretty Vulgar one, but also a couple from the drugstore that I think are a little bit better than this, like a little more like finely milled than the crayon case powder. But this one is really good too. I mean, it's definitely good for a beginner. It's definitely something that I would recommend, something that I would use myself, but I'm recommending it more so because of the shade range if you're looking for something that's more skin tone as opposed to something like this. And my recommendation for blush would be the Natasha Denona Blush Duos. So in this one, I have the shade number 11 Matte Nude, and I want to show y'all what this one looks like. So that's what it looks like here. I should have mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but everything that I'm talking about today, I do have it on my face today. I'm sorry, I'm just now thinking to mention that. So I do have this blush on today. Now these types of colors are not the ones that I would typically use. I prefer blushes that are more like orangey, peachy, maybe like a corally type blush. I got this one from BoxyCharm, so I couldn't choose my shade, but I do use this blush from time to time and I really love the formula of it. I'll use this one if I want like a really subtle, like barely there type of blush, like maybe if I'm doing like a colorful eyeshadow look or something like that, and then I just don't want a whole lot going on my cheeks. That's when I'll use this one. In these duos, you're gonna get a blush color, and then per the website, this other shade over here, you can use that to help you like blend out the edges of the blush. You may even be able to use it as another blush shade depending on your skin type, or you could use it as like a finishing or like a setting powder, but this one over here is considered the blush shade. Now this line of blushes comes in 19 shades, and that's like a whole lot of colors to choose from. So no matter what you tend to gravitate to for a blush color, you should find something that you would like in this line. What I really like about this though, especially for a beginner, is the formula of it. I love the way it blends out. I feel like you can kind of like pack this blush on and it just won't be overly pigmented. I think it's actually kind of hard in a way to build this color up, but in a way that's good because you don't want to put on, you know, too much blush. I feel like you can, you know, pack it on and you're not going to get too much stuff going on your cheeks. So I love the formula of this for a beginner, and I think that they have a really awesome shade range for this one. So this is definitely my recommendation for blush. And then moving on to bronzer. So I'm going to be recommending the Fenty Beauty Sun Stalk'r bronzer. Now this, I will say, is not my favorite bronzer, but this line of bronzers has a better shade range. Now they only come in 6 shades, so it's not like you have like, you know, 10 or 15 to choose from, but I do think out of the 6, they have a really light shade and they also have a really deep shade. And my favorite bronzer, which is the Charlotte Tilbury one, they only have 4 different options, and I feel like from light to dark, their range is just not as good as the Fenty Beauty one. Now Fenty isn't my favorite bronzer, but it's definitely still a good bronzer. It's still one that I would recommend. And again, that is the bronzer that I have on my face today. I don't know if I said this, but my shade is Cocoa Naughty. I actually wish that I had gotten the lighter one. I think that is, I don't know the name of it, but whatever, Caramel Cutie I think is the one that's lighter than this. But this one I can definitely use. I will pick it up here and there, but not my typical bronzer, but it is still one that I think is really good. So the main reason I'm recommending this for beginners is, like I said, the shade range. I do think though, just like with the blush that I just talked about, I do think that it is kind of hard to build this up, and that's definitely a good quality for a bronzer because you don't want to overdo it with your bronzer. I feel like I put maybe 3 layers of this bronzer on, and I feel like it still looks really nice and natural. So if you have like a really deep skin tone, I feel like the deepest shade in this bronzer is like really deep, so I feel like a lot of people would have options with this one. So next up is mascara, and I would recommend the Petite and Pretty Fully Feathered Volumizing Mascara. So this is another brand that I think is like mid-range. This mascara costs $16. So to give you some examples, my favorite drugstore mascara, which would be Essence, that costs $4.99, and then another like high-end mascara that I really like, the Lancome Monsieur Big Mascara, that one costs either $24 or $24.50. So with this one being $16, it does gear more toward like the high-end side of it, but I don't think it would be considered like as high-end as, again, like some of those brands that you would see in Sephora stores. So this mascara used to be my all-time favorite mascara until I started using that Essence one. This one, I just want to show you guys, see if I can show you guys the formula a little bit. First of all, I really love it when mascara wands look like this, because these types of wands, they look like they're gonna add volume to your lashes as opposed to the wands that look kind of like spiky. I think the spiky ones, they're more so for like maybe separating and lengthening the lashes, but when the wand, or when the bristles rather, look kind of like closely together, like they're packed together tightly, they usually give you more volume to your lashes, and this one makes your lashes look nice and black, at least in my opinion. I love this mascara, and I'm maybe not necessarily a mascara junkie, but I've tried like a lot of mascaras because I don't wear false lashes. So this one I think is good because it's just really easy to get it on your lashes. I mean, just one swipe of it and you have your whole lashes covered with the product. Now I will say, every time I apply this, I do get a little bit of the mascara like on my lash line or on my lid, but you can just wait for it to dry and wipe it up. But I really like this mascara because I think just a little bit of it goes a very long way. Okay, and finishing everything off with lipstick. So when I did the drugstore version of this video, I mentioned Maybelline as being the brand that I would recommend for a drugstore lipsticks for a beginner, and I think the Urban Decay lipsticks, I think Urban Decay is basically like, their line of lipsticks is basically like the high-end version of Maybelline. They just have endless possibilities to choose from. So Maybelline, or not Maybelline, Urban Decay, they do have cream finish lipsticks, and I do have one on my lips right now. This is the shade Ravenswood. So that's what this one looks like here. And they have a bunch of different colors in their cream line, from nude to very bold, like different colors, and you can find pretty much any color that suits your fancy. When it comes to beginners with lipstick, again, if you just don't know like what type of lipstick to buy, you just don't know like what color looks good on you, when it comes to the color, I would say just pick one that you like. But when it comes to the finish, if you just don't know which one to choose, I think a cream finish is a really good starting point. When you try a cream lipstick, then you can decide if you would prefer something that has more shine on your lips or something that has less shine, which would be like a mattifying finish. But I think a cream finish is like a really good starting point for beginners. So hands down, my recommendation for a high-end lipstick would be the Urban Decay Creams lipstick. So I'm gonna have everything that I talked about today linked in my description box. Let me know what your recommendations would be. For those of you who have already tried some stuff out, let me know what your recommendations would be for a high-end starter kit. And for those of you who are beginners, if you've ever tried any of these products, let me know what you think. So I hope that y'all enjoyed the video today. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe before you leave today, and I will see y'all here for my next video. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.